Hi, my name is Ellie Brocklehurst, and with me today is my beautiful friend and co-host Beck Nadalo, and together we are full-timers. As two working mums with small children and hubbies in tow, we've come to the realisation that the best way to define us and a lot of people out there is that we're full-time. Full-time mums, full-time wives, full-time employees, friends and daughters. And with all that full-time comes with it a lot of weight, obstacles and constraints, but also a lot of great opportunities. We've been searching for some way to validate our feelings about what it takes to be a woman in today's world. So rather than continue that search, we thought, fuck it, let's start it. Welcome to the Full-Timers Club. Hi, welcome back to Full-Timers Club. I'm Ellie.
And I'm Beck.
And today we have a very important conversation to discuss with you both as full-time workers and full-time mums. So Beck, do you want to dive right in?
Yeah, this is the topic of coming back to work after maternity leave. And particularly if you're going back into an organisation where maybe it's a little more loose, you know, there's not set rules, or maybe you're the first person that's gone on mat leave, or even if it is a structured place, like a big organisation that's already got policies in place, like how do you find your groove again? How do you come back in a way that works for you? How do you set boundaries? Things like that. And I wanted to read something out. So the reason I think this topic is so important is because I've had a lot of women reach out to me on LinkedIn. I've been quite vocal on LinkedIn about coming back to work and the things that need to change. And I got a message recently. And this woman says, your post really resonated with me a lot as I've been struggling to think about how to come back to work. She's just turned 8 months. I'm only just now feeling ready to move on and think about what's next. I'm excited about getting back out there, but terrified at the same time about the pain of leaving her and what succeeding at work looks like now that I can't work around the clock. What job is worth leaving her for? What is best? And the massive imposter syndrome every time I look at a job listing.
Oh my God, there's so much in that.
Oh, there's so much in that. And I mean, look, it's not one thing.
No.
There's lots of things that you can do. But I think this is such an important conversation for us to have around what worked for us, what did we do, and hopefully shed some light for other women out there who are thinking the same thing.
Because I think there's something she just said, and just to preface, this is the first time I'm hearing this, so that's a lot of information that she has shared. But one of the things she said is, how do I manage the expectations of my company now that I can't work around the clock?
Yeah.
I mean, first and foremost, that's just, I just hate to think that anyone works around the clock, but it is true because you don't have a responsibility, and really your biggest thing in your life at that point in time before kids is most likely work.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest struggles when you come back is how do you set boundaries from the second you get back so that you don't slip back into a routine where people expect you to be on call at any time.
Yeah.
When you came back from Roman, we were both at the same company.
Yeah.
We both went back almost relatively the same, maybe a few months apart.
It would have been a few months. I came back at 6 months.
Yeah.
6.5.
Okay. How did you find coming back from mat leave from Roman?
So I came back at 6.5 months, and when I went on mat leave, my advice to them was pretend I'm dead, because everyone was like, do you want us to keep you updated? Should we send you like weekly wrap-ups? I was like, no. And you know what? I think this, to your point of setting boundaries, don't start when you come back, start when you go.
That's such a good point.
Because I've heard of so many companies who do like weekly check-ins and maybe you want to come and have coffee and see what's happening. No, you don't have time for that. Like you are just trying to navigate life and a newborn and being sleep deprived, and then to have to think like, oh God, I have to get dressed up and go and meet my employer and pretend I'm interested, where all I can do right now is like not fall asleep. It's too much.
It is.
It's too much. So I was pretty clear, pretend I'm dead while I'm away. And then when I came back, and thankfully I was in a pretty senior position, I was pretty strict. I blocked out my calendar from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. because I used to have a lot of 8 a.m. meetings, and from 5 till 7. And I was like, these are my no-go zones. After that, I can keep doing calls if I need to, but I prefer not to. But basically from 9 till 5, I will not have lunch. I will be powering through my day. Like in those 8 hours, I will pump out more work than most people will in a week.
Yeah.
I was so efficient and so dedicated to the point where like I surprised myself.
Yeah.
So I found coming back hard,
Yeah.
but at the same time, because of a lot of the boundaries I put in place, it was okay.
So that is such an excellent point, to set the boundaries before you go on mat leave, because I had the opposite take, which was because I think I was the youngest member of my team in a regional team, and I was, quite early into the role. I think I remember saying to my boss, I'm around. It's just a baby. And she was the one that was actually like, no, this time with your baby is very precious. You will not be answering anything. I will not be messaging you, and you don't need to work.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went off with that amazing expectation. So the same principle, but come from someone else as opposed to me.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, it's funny, it's almost like you guys are the same, which you pretty much are. She said to me, you are not to work between 5 and 7. I don't work between 5 and 7. I have my 2 children. That is my time with my children, and you must do the same.
We really need to have an episode with Annette.
Oh, she's so brilliant.
She is amazing. But do you know how rare that is to have a boss that puts those things in place and supports you? 100%. I have just heard horror story after horror story. How did you find coming back? Because you came at 4 months, didn't you?
Yes, it was weird. So I came back at 4 months and did part-time and kind of took holiday leave. And I came back because, sadly, I think Annette was about to leave. So I came back because I was like, new boss was about to start. I really wanted to show my value. So I came back early. To be honest, a little bit of me was okay with that because I was a tiny bit bored at home. It was COVID time, so you couldn't go out, we couldn't do anything. I wasn't really coping too well just sitting at home by myself. But then I took another 2 months off and then came back again after that. So that was like 8 months. I was actually pretty okay. But I think we had COVID. I worked from home, which made it a lot easier. I had a woman, as I said, who led our business who was like, there's no meetings, you don't need to join. So I do think I had those boundaries set, which, and I never got to put it into place for my second child. As you will all know from listening to other episodes, I was made redundant on mat leave. But what I do find interesting is how quickly my boundaries moved. So it started as being like, yep, from 5 to 7, you can't reach me. And slowly with time, new boss, bigger pressures, that went out the window. Completely. To the point where I think I was getting home most days at like 6:30. I'd kind of get just in before Johnny used to go to sleep. And I think that's fine. I think, that's situational, and maybe you have to be flexible. Maybe there are times when you do have to push it out and pull it back. But I have now that I've started this new job, I have made quite a point of just really trying to get out by 5:30 and making that something that everyone's comfortable with, which most people are.
Do you know what? That was my biggest surprise is, so I had a few boundaries put in place, and one was the 5 till 7 rule. I thought people would push back on that pretty hard and be like, oh, but please. Not one single person made a comment. They were like, okay. Which made me think, why didn't I do this sooner? Why did it take a baby for me to learn how to prioritize my work and my time and put my foot down and say, I can't do that? No one had a problem with it. No client had a problem with it. My output didn't slip. My impact didn't slip. So it kind of made me think, why did I wait for a child to start putting these boundaries into place? And now that I'm in this role, I try really hard to maintain them, although it's probably more like 5:30 now instead, or maybe 6 because Roman's going to bed later and whatever, I'm running the agency. But if someone said that to me, I'd have no problem with supporting it. And I think we're often the ones who put the limitations on ourselves, not the workplace.
I wonder though, if we are kind of conditioned to think that hours are what's valued the most, like the hours you spend at work.
Completely agree.
As opposed to output, because now that I'm older, in a more senior position, and I've got 2 kids, I'm all about output.
Completely agree. And
I'm wondering if there needs to be a shift in the perception of when you're younger that just doing more hours is not going to equate to better work.
I mean, this is like my jam at the moment. Impact, not inputs. And this was my theme for the agency for the year. I am obsessed with this whole thing of tell me your impact, not your inputs. Don't tell me how many hours you worked. We're like, I'm an ex-strategist. Don't tell me how many slides your deck is. it could be 60 slides and only one of them is half decent. It has to be about impact. And the one thing I would say about Meta, for all its faults, it taught me that most valuable lesson, which is think in impact. And so when, like, for example, when you do performance reviews, it is all about what impact did you make?
Yeah.
And if you can't quantify genuine impact, it's useless. It's redundant. It's just busy work.
Yeah.
And I think as an industry, but as a society, we do think like, oh, you know, I worked so many hours, and people are like, oh my God, you must be so like amazing. I don't care if you've worked too, but you've had the greatest impact. Like all power to you then. So I completely agree. I think motherhood or parenthood forces you to reframe time in that way.
It definitely, I've made a little note here because you just said it before, of it's incredible how much more efficient you become when you don't have a lot of time to be efficient. As in like, we talk about this, we're full-timers, we're daughters, wives, mums, employees, friends, all those things. It's incredible how efficient you can become when you have so much on your plate.
My CFO says to me, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. Which is so true.
Yeah.
It's like the more you've got on your plate, the more efficient you are.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, and I'm sure these people wouldn't mind me saying this story, when I was at Wunderman Thompson, and I was on a call with Matt, Nimesh and Mark, and we were going through this deck, and they were like, oh, should we, what about this slide? And actually I think we're missing some content. And as they were talking, I was in real time changing the deck, as I usually do. And then they were like, all right, Beck, so, like, should we go away and we'll update everything? And I was like, guys, just have a look at the screen. It's already done. And they were all just like, oh, my God, were you doing that while we were all talking and debating? And I was like, yeah, because it's nearly bedtime and I have to go and feed my child and I don't have time to sit around and procrastinate and over-intellectualize things. So I've just done it now. And I remember them just being like, holy shit, like this is the epitome of efficiency.
Yeah.
And I think motherhood does that to you.
I couldn't agree more. My dad used to say this thing to us when my brother's a bit like this, and actually I think I was a bit like this before I had kids, which is he'd call us goners, and they're people who I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go for a run, or I'm gonna go finish that off, or I'm gonna. And it was such a thing of like, he used to just be like, don't be a goner, go and do it. If you're gonna do something, do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really fed my approach to life now that I've got 2 kids. I'm like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Do you also feel like your attention span's getting shorter?
Yes, a little bit. I do catch myself sometimes trying to do too many things at once. And maybe that is an attention span of kind of, I'm not used to ever really just, if I'm in something, I have to be fully in it. Like pens down, books down, everything. Like I have to be like in it.
Yeah.
Otherwise I find myself getting easily distracted by something else.
Is it because you listen to Sex and the City while you're working?
I love listening to Sex and the City.
I told Andrew that this morning and he couldn't stop laughing. He was like, hang on, so she doesn't listen to music? I was like, no, she listens to Sex and the City, an episode.
With no screen. Like it's just down.
And I can so imagine you knowing at what points to laugh because you know exactly what the scene looks like.
Do you know that the funniest thing is I don't need to see the screen because I see it in my mind. I know exactly what they're wearing. I know exactly where they are. Like, my husband finds it the weirdest thing in the world that I listen to Sex and the City when I work.
I love it.
And I said to him, it's because I cannot stand the sound of silence. Like it freaks me out, and office noise distracts me. Like if people talk or people do things, I find myself easily distracted. But I can't listen to music because then I get too into it, and then I like sing. And one of my friends, I was working the other day listening to Espresso, which can I just say, I'm so obsessed with that song. Like Sabrina Carpenter is just the coolest chick ever, and she came up and she's like, "You are having a full dance party with your laptop." And I was like, am I? And she's like, yeah, you're bopping, you're moving, you're singing.
That's amazing.
So I've just learned that music is just not a good thing for me to listen to. So I have to find something where I don't need to think about it. And Sex and the City, I've seen it, man, I reckon I've seen that like
a lot.
20 times I've seen that series. Maybe.
I think so
I think
too.
more. I think I've seen it more.
A lot.
And because of that, I don't need to watch it. I don't need to think about it. I'm not trying to catch any funny jokes. I just know it so well that it's just like white noise.
I love it. It's your white noise. It's so good. Just on that topic though of because we will do a whole separate episode on Sex and the City, I think.
Sure.
But on the topic of shorter attention spans, I do have to catch myself every now and then. I find my impatience and hyper efficiency can become a really negative trait because I expect others to be the same. And I get frustrated really quickly and I get bored. Like I've got 15 minutes basically before.
So isn't it funny? I was thinking when you asked that question before, if it's not about attention span, if it's about patience, because that's what I was thinking is as you just said, I don't think I have a lot of patience with people who waste my time because my time is really, in my mind, is very precious.
Yep.
And I don't like it when we have meetings we don't need.
Yep.
If we put in like half an hour slots for something that can be 15 minutes.
Agree.
I really like being in the office because there's so much you can just do by walking to someone's desk. So I think it's less about my attention span and more about, are you wasting my time?
True. I would agree with that. I did actually have this conversation with a creative, wonderful woman who said she's very experienced, and we were laughing because she was saying, I can't sit and listen to people all the time because say like you get given a problem and because you're experienced, you already know what the solution is, but you have to sit in the room for an hour and listen to people go around in circles and get to the solution, even though within 5 minutes of the meeting you already knew what the solution was. Because you're like, I've seen this movie 10,000 times. I know what we need to do. And I think I'm a bit the same now. I'm like, and I have to hold myself back because I just end up giving people the answers and maybe it isn't the right answer. But in the attempt to be really efficient, I'll be like, okay, this is what we need to do. Let's go. We only need 5 minutes for this, but I have to kind of hold myself back from doing that.
Isn't that funny? That's like a different kind of boundary.
Yeah.
That's like an empowerment boundary. You because we are maybe fast paced and we do know the answer. That's not always the best way to get there. I think what you've just said is a really good point.
We haven't taught people anything.
No, and just because we're impatient or we don't have a lot of time, I don't think we should then
agree.
Chastise anyone else for not getting there fast enough just because we can.
Totally agree. Back to the topic of what we were talking about of kind of mat leave. I've got some questions for you.
Yeah.
So what do you wish you had put in place? Any boundaries, or it doesn't even need to be boundaries actually. It could be your own thought processes, your own beliefs, anything that you wish you had done that you didn't do.
It's a really good question.
Sorry, I've stumped you on this one.
I've never really thought about that before. I think it's actually not with my first because I had a lot more time when I had one child.
Yeah.
Now that I have two, I really, really wish I had put in place a good system for me to carve out time to do exercise before I went back to work.
Yeah.
Because when I was on mat leave, I did do exercise, but it was like, 10 o'clock in the morning or it was 2 o'clock or like I was not, beholden to a time schedule. And now I'm really, really struggling. Like I'm really struggling to find time in the day for me to go to the gym or go for a walk and I'm really cranky that I didn't set that before I went back to work because the only solution I can really have in my mind is in the mornings. Mm-hmm. I'm blessed with 2 children that sleep till like 7. Mm-hmm. So getting up early is not something I necessarily want to do, but I actually think I'm going to have to. And I've spoken to a friend of mine who told me the other day that she felt the same way. She's got 2 kids, high-powered job, and she's like, I get up at 5:30. I don't run every day, but she's like, I get up and I have a coffee and I just have time for myself. And I was like, I want to get to a point where I do that because that's the thing I'm really lacking at the moment is time for myself in my own thoughts and physically getting like tired because I find if I go to sleep sometimes at night and I haven't exercised and my mind is racing and my body's not tired, I'm not sleeping. Yeah. So I think that's such a good question. I would say that. I would say not putting a system in place to think of myself. Yeah. Or put myself first at times before I went back to work when the madness of work just took over and I couldn't have time.
So would you say if you're thinking about advice you'd give to other women, would it be don't wait until you go back to work to put those processes into place. Start while you're on mat leave because it then gets easier to maintain it.
Yeah, because I think actually what I did was I thought of everyone else first. Mm-hmm. So I thought about meal plans. I'd do all my pre-cooking for my daughter. I would think about what everyone's going to be eating that week. I would always be thinking about what everybody else needed. Yeah. And I didn't even realize that I hadn't factored myself into that.
Yeah.
Like food, yes, of course, I eat the meals, but that's my advice is just figure out what you are going to need to thrive.
Yeah.
And what I know I need to thrive is a really good mental state, which often comes from exercise.
Yeah.
So my advice is definitely, and figure out what that is for you. If it's yoga, if it's a walk, whatever it is, figure out before you go to work where that time is going to come from.
Yeah.
Otherwise you'll never find the time.
Yeah. And moving into this new role, now you've got 2 kids, what are some of the behaviours, policies, things that you're trying to put in place, and do you feel supported in doing so?
100%. I think our company is really good at allowing you to do what's best for your family. You know, we've got really good leave policies. We have things like doona days, which I love, which is just like no medical leave. It's just if you just need a day for you.
Do people actually take it?
Yeah, people do actually
That's
take it.
good.
I really like it.
That's great.
Because like medical leave is always challenging. Sometimes we have to get the medical certificate and it's all a bit of thing. And sometimes you do just need like a day.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes there are kids that come to our office and that's because like the dad or the mum couldn't get any help that day. So yeah, I think they do. My boss is also, you know, he has a son. So he's quite big again on creating those boundaries. I've got a colleague who is like, I have to go swimming every day and 4 o'clock's the best time for me to do it because that's not when people want me. Like it's weirdly, everyone wants him in the morning.
4 p.m. or
4 p.m. No,
Oh,
4
p.m. Sorry, I think meant a.m.
So he goes 4 p.m. and then he's back on work. So I think we're very good at acknowledging you and whatever you need, and we support that. And I really 100% believe in that.
Yeah, yeah. What advice would you give women who are coming back to work? Probably, I think first child might be, well, actually, I don't know. I haven't got a second, so you tell me. First or second, what was harder?
I feel like I can't. I come from a different place where I was starting a new role with my second.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, because I was made redundant, I knew I wanted to work. So going back to work was really exciting. I was quite looking forward to it. I was also very lucky to have 8 months off, which I actually think is the perfect amount of time to have off. I think 4 is way too early. 6, it does feel a bit soon. 8, perfect. 8, you're going through solids. They're sitting most likely. You know, they're a little more robust.
Yeah.
So I would say going back, it's funny, I don't think it was hard going back. I think what's been hard is adjusting to life once you're back.
Right. Yeah.
That I've actually struggled with way more. Is not is, as you say, is setting the boundaries.
I think though you've raised something that's important. So you've had the luxury of 8 months, right? So when I started at my job, the mat leave policy was 2 months for foreigners.
What?
And 4 months for locals. And we had a woman who had just come back after 2 months. 2 months.
8 weeks.
8 weeks. She was still bleeding.
Oh my God.
And it broke my heart. And literally the first thing I did when I got there was change our policy to 4 months across the board. And we gave her the 2 months extra.
Oh, amazing.
We retro
Actively?
That
doesn't seem right.
That doesn't sound right. Anyways.
Retrofit?
No, that's still not right. I can't think of what the word is. But you
gave it back. You gave it to her.
We gave it to her. So she took 2 months later on. So to that point, like for me, I can't afford unpaid leave. Just can't. So chances are I'll have to come back after 4 months. And 4 months is the worst time to come back because you're hitting the regression. And so I think a lot of women won't have the luxury of coming back after 6 or 8. It will either be 2 because some organisations still don't give foreigners more than 2, or they're coming at 3 or 4, which I think is the hardest time because you're probably more sleep deprived than ever.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to navigate coming back and proving your worth and managing this entirely new person, life, family life, everything.
I think that's why the Singapore announcement is so amazing.
Yeah.
Because exactly that point. So I wish I had a stat, and maybe we'll find a stat and we can post it on our socials. But and I know I experienced this. I naturally, my milk naturally started depleting around 3 or 4 months. And I don't know if that's just because that's what my body did, because the second time around it was affected by redundancy. But my first time it was definitely dwindling.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with the hormone loss that you get from possibly losing your milk. You're trying to deal with how am I going to pump, because at that stage they're 100% milk fed. So there's no solution to give them food. As you say, can still be all kinds of healing that you need to do. 4 months feels, 8 is barbaric. I just actually, 8 weeks.
Yeah,
me,
I think it's barbaric as well.
I didn't even realize that. I remember you saying you were going to change it. I didn't think it was 8. Jesus. I don't think you're even like, I don't think you even had like a proper shower by yourself by the time it's 8 weeks.
Exactly.
Like that's so little.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think, leading on to that, now that you're in a position of power and that you can create change for others, what are some of the things that either you're doing, you want to do, or you wish workplaces would do?
I think, as I said, our workplace is pretty good. I just want to make sure that I speak what I say and that, that I do what I say. So because I'm very vocal about the fact that I want to leave at 5 and I'm always like, I'm going to my kids need dinner. I want to make sure that continues and that I don't slip back into that pattern that I did last time where all of a sudden those boundaries are out the window and I'm available whenever you need me. Yeah. Because I just think that's to the detriment of only you and your family. Yeah. So setting boundaries, I want to make sure that I stick to it. And yes, there are going to be times like this week where I was out twice and I didn't get to put my kids to bed. But today I'm like very much, I think I even said it's Teachers' Day. Thank you all the wonderful teachers out there. And so my kid's not at school. And so my wonderful helper Juliet has my 2 children at home. So already I'm like, right, I'm going to go pick up my son, take him to work for an hour or 2, give her a break. And then I'm going to go home and be with him from, early afternoon. I just think it's walking the talk and making sure that the company consistently and continually drives that support. Yeah. What about you?
Oh gosh, there's so much. I totally agree. I think you have to do what you say or practice what you preach. If you are saying you need to have, blocking out 5 till 7, if I let that slip, and I'm so conscious of this, if I let that slip once, I've sent a signal to everyone in the agency and industry or my clients or whoever it might be that I don't really care about those things. So even though sometimes I might not need to put those boundaries in place, I'm really conscious that this symbol of doing it actually speaks louder than the act itself. I think allyship is such a massive thing. I think back now to what an asshole I must have been to so many of my friends who have got kids when I was putting in 6:30 p.m. meetings, 8 a.m. meetings. And I wish someone had said to me, hey, Beck, do you know what? That is like the worst time for a parent. Can you change that meeting? So now I'm really conscious of if I see something that's done that I know it's a pain in the ass, it might not be for me, but I know it's going to be for someone else in my team, I'll raise my hand and be like, hey guys, can we change this? And tell them why so that they know not to repeat it the second time. And I think just being a vocal advocate for all of these things, like I did a post a little while ago on LinkedIn that I got a lot of comments from women saying, my God, this is so important. And it was about loud leaving. So this whole concept of, it's like 5:30 and you need to leave. So you like really, really quietly sneak out the office hoping that no one's going to notice.
Yeah, definitely done that in my day.
Doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
So when I'm about to leave, I'll often say, guys, I'm off now. I'm going to go see my boy. And by doing that, you've just made it acceptable for others to do the same thing. Yeah. So I think for anyone who's in a position of power, these things are so important. And I think if you're not, or you feel like you're not in the position of power, I think the best thing you can do is think about what are the boundaries that you want to put in place and then tell everyone, communicate it. Don't hope that people figure it out. You have to, from day one, even like an email to all of your colleagues and bosses and say, hey guys, these are some of the things that I'd like to put in place. Here's what I need from you. I'd really appreciate it if you could respect these. Great. Yeah. Awesome. And maybe have that conversation with your boss beforehand to say, how do these things sound? Hopefully they'll be supportive. If they're not, then maybe they're not the best workplace. But I think it's really important to not be ashamed of these things, but actually let everyone know so that you can hold people accountable as well.
Yeah, love that.
Sorry, that was a lot.
No, it was great.
I get really passionate about this.
No, but that's we need people like you in our industry, out in the world, celebrating the choices that we make to be parents, because that's the thing. Even having female allyship is one thing, but having male allyship is even better, because if we have parental leave schemes in place that allow men to have the same rights, then it's only going to further the enhancement of being a parent, and it's just going to cherish. I mean, that's the thing that I think is really important is having people. We've just literally talked about how we can empathize with the situation because we're parents.
Yeah.
So having people on both sides being able to understand the value of spending time with your family and choosing your family above all else, I think it's second to none.
Totally. And I would love to leave on the last point of exactly what you said. It's only through experience you recognise these things. And so when you're thinking about policies for other things, whether it's like neurodiverse colleagues, whether it's about working from anywhere, whether it's expats, whether it's whatever it might be, get people who have actually experienced it to be part of the solution.
That is a brilliant place to end.
Yeah.
Love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Full Timers Club. This is Beck.
And Ellie, and we will see you next time. Thanks.